Okay, so take it away, Nancy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome in today's episode of NAWRB. Today, I'm hosting. My name is Nancy Obando, and I have Vanessa, Angie, Laura, Nina, and Desiree with me. Love you, ladies. Thank you for joining. So today's topic is Pass the Torch. And, it's a really, that's something that really speaks to me, for example, in the industry, because despite recent positive growth, women still remain significantly underrepresented at all levels of employment. I would say myself that, throughout my career, there's typically been a male figure, especially in the executive level position. So as I've been, fortunate to move up the ranks, I've really made sure that I wanted to bring up more women with me and help as many women as possible. And I don't mean that only for the women who are maybe just starting, but even the one that's next to me, the woman that's already above me. Just because I feel like the higher you move up, the lonelier it feels. And sometimes when people see a strong woman, they forget that they too need help. So for me, passing the torch is not just for the future generations, although it does encompass that, but it's also the girl that's right along with me, my coworker, my colleague, my friend, whether she's more prosperous than me or not, or if I could help her get to that next level, because I could see that she's ready and I could see that she has the potential, why not? I could celebrate, her, her triumph, with her. I could live vicariously through her. So that's what pass the torch, means to me, personally. So one of the things that I just actually realized last week, when I downloaded my NAWRB report, you could download it off Amazon and onto your Kindle. You just have to search NAWRB. And one of the things that stuck out to me was this broken rung that they talk about, right? And how the obstacles that women have, to get into these manager type positions. And they even talked about how 1 in 5 C-suite executives is a white female, but 1 in 25 C-suite executive positions is a woman of color. Now, that is impressive to me because we're in 2021, and yet we're 4% women of color in executive level positions and 18%, as a white woman. And if you want to go a little bit lower on below C-suite into senior vice president type positions, like mine, there's only 5% women of color and 21% white women in that position. So that to me says that we need to continue passing on the torch, because I do not want to be part of that 5%. I do want to be part of a larger scope of women. So I definitely feel that passing the torch is important. So I want to pass it on. I want to pass on the torch to each and every one of you here too, and ask you this question of what pass the torch means to you. Give us an example of how someone, passed the torch on to you and how this gesture affected you. So I'm going to start. I'm just going to go down the line how I see the boxes, and to the right of me is Vanessa.
All right, thanks, Nancy. Great introduction, actually. So I bring a unique perspective because I'm an avid learner, and actually I studied gender studies, and I really looked at how women at the executive level right now, and this is through a lot of research, and most of my reporting comes like from the McKinsey Institute and also catalysts. So those are the two think tanks that come up with a lot of great information. And you're absolutely correct. It's between 5 and 6% of all women are at the C level, the executive level, whether they're the chief financial officer, the chief executive officer. And we have to change that narrative. And how do we're doing that already. 51% of the population is women. 55% and higher are out earning and actually outperforming and getting more degrees in education than men at all levels, whether it's associates, bachelor's, master's, doctorate, postgraduate work. So I know we still have inequality when it comes to positions, inequality when it comes to also pay wages, and more importantly with women of color, such as yourself, Nancy, and me and Nina on this call, we're not making the same amount of money or even having the same positions. So we're changing that narrative, and which better way than passing the torch? And I love that because we're passing that torch, and it's a metaphor. And it came out of the Greeks. So when the Greeks they were running, they would pass one torch to the other, and it was literally on fire. So this is how important it is. We are all on fire, and we have to pass that torch to all women, whether it's a woman of color or non-color. We're all here as a united front, as a united force, and we're doing that now with having these conversations with NAWRB and what we stand for. So I think it's really important that we uplift each other at all times and celebrate our wins. And how I also do this at all times by passing the torch is celebrating our wins. If we have somebody who got a promotion or is thinking getting another position or networking, I'm the biggest advocate, and I always pass the torch and celebrate their wins. I'm really happy when people succeed, when they're looking out and they're the first female executive or the first CEO. And I can think no one better than last week with Tasenda Duckett. She became the first CEO of Black women in a long time. There's only 2 right now, but I met her when I worked at Chase, and she was just like a ray of sunshine. I mean, she was bright, confident, outgoing, and then she moved up the ranks real fast at Chase based on her performance and her drive and her wisdom. And now she became a CEO for another major financial bank institution, TIAA. And I thought that was incredible. So we have to celebrate more wins like that, because together we're going to be stronger. And if I could see her, I can be her. And I just love celebrating the wins. And that's how I really love to go ahead and celebrate and pass the torch. And also by mentoring. Whether you're a mentee or a mentor, I think we can help each other by being helping each other and guiding them in the career, or also sponsoring them. What do you say behind closed doors when Nancy's not in the room, or Desiree, or Laura? They're amazing, they're so driven. And that's what we need to do. We need to celebrate our wins and be that voice when you're in the room and not in the room. So that's how I plan to amplify and help and pass that torch. So
I love it. I love it. If I could see her, I could be her.
Absolutely.
We definitely need to write that down. Nina, what about you? How, give us an example of how someone has passed the torch to you, and how did this gesture affect you?
Thank you, Nancy, and hello, everybody. Such a pleasure to be part of this amazing group, and just love the conversation. It's so positive, right? Passing the torch, right? Giving to another person, right? Without asking for anything. And that to me is a philosophy that I believe in and like to live by, and was taught to me, growing up. But it's really been, I feel like I've been surrounded by many angels in my life that have passed the torch to me, professionally and personally, that were just amazing women. And I think one of my first experiences professionally where somebody reached out to me and passed the torch was in my early 20s, when I was just getting into the real estate business. And she was actually one of my competitors, which was funny enough. And her name is Jill Eber, and she's a very famous real estate agent here in Miami. And we were at an appointment, and the client was being very difficult with me. And I had just, gotten my license, and I was just green, like my shirt. Okay. Like I was just very fresh. And I remember she looked at me and she could tell that I was in a difficult situation. And she just took over and just helped me. And she didn't have to do that, right? I mean, we were competing in the same real estate market, and she's very competitive. And yet she stood there and she stood up for me and she taught me, right? Even when it's your competition, be kind, right? And give. And I never forgot that. And, to this day, I really admire her for doing that. That was one of the things that helped me understand, right? To always help women, even if you're in a competitive situation. And I think that's important, right? Because as we all go up the corporate ladder, I think it's important to be kind to each other, even if we're in a competitive landscape.
I agree with you, Lena. I agree. There is enough business for all of us to be successful. So there's no reason. We already have enough competition, out there. So if we unite, as like Vanessa said, as a united front, we could definitely achieve a lot more. So thank you for that, Nina. How about Laura?
Well, I've seen the torch not only being passed, but thrown in my 25 years in the business. Years ago, did commercial and residential, and certain male ethnicities would not deal with women who listed apartment buildings. They just refused. So guess what? They didn't buy ours. But then to join and be one of the first real estate auctioneers, women in California, that was the good old boys club. And I think I've mentioned it before, to go down to the convention, walk in, and they grab you and say all the wives and secretaries are going to the aquarium. And I kept walking in. And he said, "Didn't you get the message?" And I go, "Well, I'm state licensed bonded auctioneer and I'm coming in." And he said at the time, he said, during the whole conference, "We sell pigs, we sell chickens, and that lady thinks she's going to make a living doing real estate." Well, I wish he was alive to see it. And from another aspect, my name is Laura Dietz. My late husband was German. They always call me Laura Diaz. They think I'm Hispanic, but I'm 100% Italian. But it's so funny that so many people, you say, pass the torch. One of my dearest friends now is the CEO of the largest credit union in motion picture industry. She's Irish. And the thing of it is, if you see someone, and I work with women all the time mentoring, no matter what, you have to help them. If you help someone do better and make a living and earn, you've done a tremendous thing. We all have gifts and assets. Vanessa, you share so much, but we are the pivotal, we are the torch. And I think we need to be a little bit more aware of it. And especially now with women being at home, working from home, I'm seeing mega women really excel in the industry, and I love it. So anyway, that's my feed.
Thank you, Laura. I love it. I love it. We're throwing the torches now. We're not just passing them now, we're throwing them. Angie, how about you? What does pass the torch mean to you? I'm throwing it on to you, and an example of someone who passed the torch to you and how that affected you.
Sure, absolutely. Ladies, I love everything that you have to say about this. And I really agree with what Laura mentioned, is that we are the torch. That's a lot of what, comes to my mind, is just knowledge. And I have been passed so much knowledge by so many amazing and smart women. And, one of them, when I came out to California, I was working at a lemonade stand, and I got hired at a small company that built websites for real estate agents. And my boss there taught me everything to know about SEO. And as you guys know, search engine optimization is like the backbone of any business now. So learning that information, and she was just so generous in that knowledge. And then, so I went off and started my own company that did, SEO and internet marketing and things like that. And then I decided that I liked doing real estate better. So I turned around and passed that torch to another good friend who had given me a call, and she said, Angie, she had gotten into a car accident and was, struggling. She couldn't be a waitress anymore or be a server. So she said, Angie, will you teach me what you know? Because I could work from bed with, what you do on the computer on my laptop. So then I turned around and passed the torch to her. And now we still have that women-owned business together today. And she runs the day-to-day operations of that. So that's, I think kind of just a story that encompasses what you ladies are talking about here, to be mentored and be the mentor and kind of just take, bring your friends up, because you're so right, Nancy. It is boring at the top if you're there by yourself. You want your friends to be there with you. You want everybody else on your island too. So one of the things I did it with real estate as well. I've got an assistant that it used to be something, I don't know if the rest of you ladies that are doing real estate have noticed this as well, but you train up an assistant and they leave you. And it's like, at first in the beginning of my career, I was like, this is so disappointing. Like, I'm trying to bring people onto my team, and what I didn't really realize is I was building them to be their own team leader. And then I had one come back to me years later and say, Angie, I thank you for that knowledge, and you've taught me how to go out and be an agent on my own. So now I don't think of it as a bad thing when an assistant leaves the nest after 2 years. I think of, I did my thing, and we're putting more good real estate agents out into the world. So yeah, keep passing the torch.
Yes, Angie, what you're doing is being a true leader and creating more leaders along the way. And that's what's happening. I know sometimes, like you said, it feels sad I have to start over and retrain someone.
Yeah.
But the reality is that as a true leader that you're creating more leaders and you're paving the way for everyone else. So that's a great thing that's happening.
Awesome.
Tiffany, I'm so glad you are here.
Yes, I would not miss it.
Well, thank you for joining. So the question is, give us an example of how someone has passed the torch to you and how that affected you.
I would always say, and I want to share this wholeheartedly, is opportunity. When you give people opportunity, that creates everything. That's everything. So for me, coming through, I started my real estate journey through YPN, which is Young Professionals Network. And through that, yay, Angie. And through that is where I honed in on my skills. And that's where I cut my teeth. And that's where I made a lot of mistakes. And then there were people watching, because there's always someone watching in the background, that came to pick me up. And from there, basically, they trained me. They let me see the world through their eyes of real estate, and in turn passed that torch over to me, which gave me an opportunity to grow as a person, but also as a professional. And I think that the main components of that is passing a torch. You don't just pass it, like most of these women have said. You educate, you help, you grow other people. One of the best things I've ever heard is you always have to replace yourself. Everything you should be doing, you should be thinking that I need to replace myself. So as I get to certain points of my career or certain milestones, I'm always training other people, because I feel like you do want to replace yourself. If you're not replacing yourself, you're not growing. And so passing that torch to the next person gives them a confidence that they can be more than where they are. So I love what Angie said about like the assistants and them coming back to you, because at first you were like in that moment, like, oh my God, I'm just getting burned here. But then you realize as they came back years later, no, they learned a great deal from you. You inspired them, and you are a part of the reason where they are right now. So you pass that torch, even though you didn't know that. So I think creating opportunity for people is huge. The torch was passed to me through my YPN from our chair at the time, who groomed me. And at the time, I didn't know I was being groomed, which I think, like when Laura said, you get thrown into there. That's basically the backdoor way into doing it. A lot of people will invest time and efforts in you. And at the time, you really can't see what or why, but basically what they are doing is they're preparing you to pass that torch.
Well, well said. The fact that you said you have to, prepare to replace yourself.
Mhm.
That automatically is really elevating yourself, right? Because you know that you're going to move on from that position anyway. You're going to outgrow the position. Might as well train someone to replace you as you move up along the ranks. I love that, because one of the reasons why I read on a study one of the reasons why there's not a lot of women in executive positions or management positions is because they don't believe that they can achieve that level as well. So if we're already in the mindset that we're going to outgrow this position and take it to the next level, we're automatically believing, which is one of our principles as well, believing that we could take it to that next level and replace ourselves. I love that. Not last but not least, we have Desiree.
Yeah, thank you. I'm over here sneezing my head off, so I apologize if I, jerk out the other. But this is incredible, Nancy. You're doing a phenomenal job. There's so many highlights between all of you that have said, from, first of all, I'd like to pass the torch on a personal level. So keep that thought and we'll move on real quickly. So Nancy, you talked about the NAWRB report. So thankful that you brought that up. The data analytics for the NAWRB report are on Kindle and Amazon and also on our website, but the ability to have the data of 150 pages, 80 resources curated together to talk about the levels of D&I, real estate, access to capital, aging population, business ownership, all that is passing the torch of knowledge, because without it, wealth is defined by having options. So that whole integration, I love it. So thank you very much on that, Nancy. The other thing is that Vanessa, you brought up, if you can see her, you can be her. I remember when I was at the White House, every quarter we would have our women's business owner meeting there, because we're part of the SBA's national platform. And as an advisor to the SBA Congress and the president, the NWC was set up during 1988 so to make sure that women could get a business loan. Most of us, could you imagine not being able to get a business loan because you're a woman? A boy could sign at 16 years old and not be a relative of yours, and you could not have access to capital. So I was so honored 11 years ago to be part of that whole ecosystem, to be at the White House on a quarterly basis to work in that capacity. And one of the things they talked about, I would say about 6 years ago, was we met with the chief science officer, and she said, there's a $20 billion business in the entertainment business, which is really great for Laura, is if you can see her, you could be her. So one of the things that we worked here at NAWRB was, okay, how do we find 50-year-old women and above that are in a professional setting that we can amplify that imagery? We couldn't find it. We could go through all the different stock options that you had out there. So we actually created a platform to get more pictures of everyday women. We asked the government, we asked everyone in public, private sector, you name it, to get your picture on a platform. The issue is that when you're curating the pictures, angles of lighting and shade and how you integrate that is very tough, because you have to have like 10 different rotations of that picture, depending on how you integrate that art. So we kicked it off, it did well, but we need more. So all of you that are 50 and above, please, 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 we need more pictures of that, because why? If you can see her, you can be her. So very, very important things, because you don't have that information. So we went back to the authentic. We started saying, I want to take your picture. Well, the government's like, I'm an official so-and-so, you can't have my picture out there, and, branding and everything else. So those are some of it. So that's very cool. The other thing, you talked about, Nina, about Jill. Well, we did a She Centerfold on the Jills. They are very, very successful. They did over $1 billion worth of business in 1 year. I think it was in, I'm going to say 2016, 2017, if I'm not mistaken. They're in Miami in Florida, and it was the first time we've ever done a she centerfold with two people, because the girls are not related. They actually sat next together, as you said, competitors, and they needed someone to take care of their high wealth customers. One was entertainment, other one did high end, also entertainment, but different strain. And they became best of friends and supported each other because they knew the clients had to be taken care of a certain way. So the fact that I now have a story to tie that back together, how cool. So the next time you see Jill, just say, remember that she centerfold? Yeah, it was very popular. It was very cool. The other thing I'd like to talk about is that Laura, you brought in the aspect about, going for an auctioneer. That's a niche. Most people are not auctioneers in real estate. An auctioneer can be in any capacity. It could be airplanes, boats, livestock, you name it. So to stand up and say, hey, I'm not the secretary. I'm not the, the environment of just being here as a note taker or someone that's going to, help curate. I'm doing it. And I believe that is what we all find our special niches in real estate or in life, right? And then Angie, you talked about knowledge. It is so, you remind me of someone like myself, that you go places and do things that most people wouldn't do, like renting out your home, personal home. And I'm going to go trial. I'm going to go find a new way of doing real estate while I'm still handling my real estate, but I'm going to give up my home. Well, they pay my mortgage and go find living on campgrounds, figuring things out. Every week I see a new product from you in real estate because it's niche. And that knowledge has driven me to be, why aren't you investing in shopping centers and how to do social impact? Why am I not physically doing that? So thank you for that inspiration, because as Nancy says, passing the torch, it's to your side. It's not just below you. It's to the people you see that you can amplify. Hey, let me help me with my business. Let me help me with my own personal life of what I'm doing, right? So thank you, Angie. And then Tiffany, you talk about the integration of, you are an example of, to me, that joining everything, amplifying who and what you are, to be able to be put in positions that you are the working growth, to see what you've gone from for the last couple of years to where you are now, and the environment of all the different platforms you're on and the acknowledgements and growth. Love it. I mean, you're out there saying, instead of having behind the scenes, you are the scene. You're out there saying, look at what I've been doing. You can amplify it. You did the sports and entertainment group, if I'm correct? Yeah. So there again, that's another niche of how you're amplifying that information. So to sum it up for me, I like to really stress, because of 2020, we all talked about work on the professional level. Let's bring it back to the personal level. Right now, passing the torch, I think the most important is keeping humanity and helping us together in the personal level on taking care of our children, and how do we integrate and reaching out. And the biggest thing from the executive level is picking up that phone, which not everyone loves to pick up your phone and call someone and really have that conversation. What can I do to help you? Instead of, let me just text you. So how do we help each other, whether it be through medical issues, whether it be through financial issues, whether it be through just trigger issues? How do we deal with so many of us loved ones getting COVID and the lingering effects, or the complications of getting access to healthcare, you name it. Those are personal, not just the workforce, on how do we pass that torch. So I'm always a giver of information. I'm a walking encyclopedia, from healthcare to, what kind of vitamins to take, what kind of, alternative medicines there are, holistic medicines. I went to my very first, I was exposed to acupuncture and acupressure 48 years ago. One of the very first Chinese scientists to come to the United States. There's only 6 of them in the United States that had this big machine, and let me hook you up. Now you go down to CVS and get it for $10. Okay, so time has changed, but it was what kept me it kept me alive when I fell off my horse when I was 16 to go through that. I came back to him and he kept me put in shape. So thank the man for being new and integrated. So in summation, for me, pass the torches, pass the knowledge. I'm all about giving and information and shock treatment, because I believe the inspiration of life has to be there. And we all have a different way of delivery. You know, for me to get into this box now and not move my arms and run around and do all kind of stuff is confining to me, but keeping that energy is how I want to pass the torch of information and knowledge. So thank you very much. I'll get off my squawk box.
No, I love it, Desiree. I was talking about always passing the torch at work, but you're right. You know, at a personal level, you know, we should be reaching out to each other as well, especially right now during this time where we're not able to maybe self-soothe as we used to, or occupy our times outside of just, you know, the work circle. Or we have women who are professionals and have young children. How are they coping and still able to stay afloat with that? So, you know, that leads me to the next question of, you know, how can we ensure that there's more female representation at the executive and board level? And how can we ensure that we're checking in with each other? You know, I understand that just recently in January of 2020, a law was passed where, you know, you are required, if you want to go public, to have at least one woman board of directors in the position. January 2020 is what stood out to me. This is just happening in January of 2020, that we're barely, you know, acknowledging that there's not enough women in the board of directors level. I thought that was very interesting. So how can we ensure that there's more representation? What are you doing? What is your action plan to make that happen? I'm going to start with Nina.
Thank you, Nancy. And so from a corporate standpoint, the company I work for, Home Services of America, we have a diversity initiative that is just phenomenal. And it's being led by an amazing woman, Teresa Palacios Smith. And so we've actually started local diversity committees, which brokers put together, and Tiffany is familiar with this as well, and involved as well. And so from a corporate level, you know, we have this initiative, and then it's trickling down to the brokerages, right? And we have a council that we put together that Teresa is leading to discuss how we can increase diversity among the real estate industry, right? And among leadership as well. The other very interesting thing that we're working on is we're going to be having a conference that's just about diversity and inclusion, and it's called Belong. And so that's also coming up as well. So that's very exciting. From a personal standpoint, I have been helping a friend of mine who's a mother of two, and her husband during COVID, I guess, was having depression, and she was taking some medicine to help that depression, but it led to him having suicidal thoughts. And so her kids are the age of my son. My son is 11, and then that's her daughter, and then her son is 7 years old. And she went to drop off her son at school one morning, and her husband killed himself in front of her daughter. And so you can imagine, you know, her life changed like this, right? And so I belong to a group of mothers, and we have a WeChat, and not a WeChat, a WhatsApp, everything. So that chat just blew up that morning, right? And she's very private. And so I said to everybody on that chat, ladies, leave her alone, let her mourn, right? And let's be there for her, you know, and support her, right? And so that's what we did. And that was about 6 months ago that happened. And so I've been there for her. You know, she needed help with medical stuff. She needed help with legal stuff. I mean, he didn't leave anything in writing for her. So you can imagine she's got these two kids. She's she, you know, is a mother that just stays home. She hasn't worked. So helping her, you know, through every single step of that, I've been there for her. And so I feel like I'm passing the torch to her, right? And helping her in that way. And it's really, now she's in such a better place today than she was back then. Her kids are, you know, I recommended a therapist for her kids as well. And so I helped them get into their new school. And so that's what I've been doing personally, to help her. And I try to do that, you know, and I try to pass the torch as much as people have passed it to me, right? Because that's the beauty of it. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's a great story, Nina, you know, especially on a personal level, and it touches on mental health, which is really important for us to make sure that we're checking in, you know, with you know, our colleagues, our friends, our family, and making sure that, you know, they're doing well. I wanted to pass it on to Vanessa.
Thanks so much, Nina, for sharing that story. It's very difficult right now with the pandemic, connecting, and we're social, right? We always are hugging and connecting, and it's been difficult through the pandemic, making that connection on a virtual space. I think we're all learning how to cope and navigate through, one, the pandemic, the social unrest, and everything going on. But sometimes we just need to take a step back and breathe. So with passing the torch, I think we can all make a little bit of differences, whether you're internal at work and external. For me, with internal, I always try to help and improve and train and coach any way possible, in my department, in my team, and then also volunteer within our business resource groups. So I think you can make a difference at your work in any capacity by just raising your hand and being 100% in and involved. So for me, I'm very passionate about the home lending side. So however we can help navigate and bring in more sustainable home ownership, I'm all in. On a personal side, for me, when I volunteer to causes that speak to my heart, that I know that I'm going to be making an impact in the community. I'm currently helping on one, and it's called Rebuilding Together Los Angeles, the City of Angels. And what I love about it is it's helping the aged population, which we're all going to be aging, really get their home fitted for now. They're at a certain part of their time, you know, they're a certain stage of their life that they might need security handles in the bathroom, or the knobs, you know, fire extinguishers. You also need just little improvements on how we can help the senior citizens in the Los Angeles area. And it really spoke to me because a lot of the time, Social Security is not going to take you far. So a lot of the homes need retrofitting. They need to be better windows, energy efficiency, small steps that matter. And when the CEO of the organization, who many of you know, Zita, came calling, she's like, I'm in, because I know I've been impacted seeing when my grandmother was aging. So how we can give back, it has to hold meaning to yourself and why you want to help and pass the torch, regardless of circumstance, but that you're helping the community. So to me, it's a matter of seeing more representation, but really do things that speak to your passion and to your heart, that you know that you're going to be helping others for a greater good. And to me, I'm always going to be that voice and that advocate for those that can't always speak up for themselves, because I know I saw it with my grandmother. At the time she was aging, she was very hard of hearing, and she was legally blind. So to me, it's like, I'm going to be her voice and that beacon for her. And I am definitely going to help those in need in the community, with the pandemic, without a pandemic, because we're all going to need to be helped together and pass that torch and just continue to serve those that we love our most, and who more to me than our elders. So that's how I see we can all just give back a little bit. And you know, what you give, you get back in tenfold. It's not a matter of money. It's just what fills your soul, and it's doing the right thing for the community. So Nina, thank you so much for sharing that story. It really touched a chord. And anyway, back to you, Nancy.
Thank you, Vanessa, for being a voice, and yes, you know, thank you, Nina, as well too, for sharing that story. How about you, Laura? How do you feel like you know, can ensure that there's greater female representation, you know, at every level, personally and in business?
Well, I think COVID brought a lot of changes for a lot of the charities and a lot of the groups I'm involved with. A lot of you know I'm very involved with the military, and especially foster children and people that need. It's really surprising to me how a small gesture, you can go into a parking lot while I'm waiting for restaurants to open and get a lunch to go. And maybe you could pick up a lunch for that parking attendant that's just sitting there all day. It means the world to people if you can just reach out, just do something, not wanting anything in return. I'm thinking of you. Do you need? So many elderly are in trouble, but I'm seeing so many teenagers that are not back in school, especially California. We're so damaged that way. They're very depressed. They have no social anything. So reach out. A lot of foster kids are coming out of the system right now. They come out with a paper bag. Contact them. Find out how you can give your suitcases to them so they come out with something. Be a force. Be something. Just be kind. And I'm seeing, a lot of that. Force yourself to smile to people. You can smile through a mask. They can see your eyes. But I think it's important that we take a look outside of ourselves and see how can we make a difference one little step at a time. I know years ago with the REO business I've been in a long time ago, they had to take us. They had to have a token woman with all the big banks. But it's so interesting now because most of the ones that I work with, we're all women and the men are the minority. And I think we're seeing great progress, but be that network, be that mentor. I do a lot of training for HUD, and it's surprising. Reach out. If you can help somebody learn, they're going to earn, they're going to support their family. Give of yourself because we're in the service business. Don't be so, how do you say, keep it for yourself, spread the torch, throw it. And that's what I do.
I love it, Laura. Thank you for that. Angie, you're up next.
Well, I really like all the things that you ladies are saying, and definitely Laura with just those simple acts of kindness go a really long way. But I would say to bring more representation to, people on the board level, I'll bring it back to knowledge, because one of the things that Desiree said is the reason why women aren't going after these positions is because they don't feel capable. They don't feel like they know enough or they're smart enough or whatever. So continuing to always be a student, no matter what level you're at, high, low, middle. And you guys mentioned it with, I'm one of the white people on the call here, so I'm trying to learn more about diversity. So I expanded my knowledge by getting the At Home with Diversity designation for real estate last week. And just, I obviously, you don't have to do that. You don't have to continue your knowledge. I could just close deals, but I don't want to just do that. I want to, get more knowledge so that I can move up the ladder. And when we talk about the ladder, one thing that's important is just tapping those shoulders and saying, I believe in you. I see something in you, and just planting those seeds. Because I remember that happening to me when I was working at corporate. And ladies, do not be afraid. I want to tell you a quick little story. Like, I remember when I was working corporate, and I went in and I asked both of my bosses who are males for a raise, and I said, I can't remember how much I was making. I said, but I want to make this amount of money, and I don't want to continue to be making this amount of money, whatever I was making. And then one of my bosses, after I left that meeting, said, you're making more than the other boss that you just disclosed what you were, what your salary was. And that was a telling moment for me, because I was like, you know what? I'm not going to stay in this cubicle, in this area, and in this, industry to make the most already of what I'm making. So I knew I had to leave. So don't be afraid when you get that, bomb of information dropped on you about, like, not necessarily having a beautifully paved road ahead of you. Don't be afraid to jump ship and go. And that brings me to my next point of vulnerability on a personal level. Like Nina said, like, we have these times in our life that we are just so vulnerable, that we need help and that we need to ask for help and that we need to give help. So I think that just, again, jumping in, like Laura said, during these vulnerable situations that people are having, that you can really pass the torch. Because let's be honest, like, we don't always grow our most maximum when we're having a bright, sunny year. It's years like 2020 where we get that grit down and we really figure out how we're going to grow. So yeah, don't be afraid to keep being vulnerable with your fellow humans and females out there, because we don't have to always act like we have it all together. We can be honest about where we're going and how we can come up together, you guys.
That is so true. Sometimes we just forget that we can ask, or, we get caught up on like, well, nobody's around me, or no one wants to help, or I don't want to bother someone, maybe they're too busy. And I think we overthink it, right? And overanalyze. Just ask for help. Like you're saying, if you need it, there's no reason why you can't ask. And I like what you said, staying curious and having that thirst for knowledge, can only help us grow more. So I love it. Thank you. Tiffany.
Well, I want to leave you guys with a poem, but I want to touch everything that you guys touched on because it's so important. But the main thing that I want to touch on is that we have to be an example for other women. Women have to be each other examples. And because you have, like you guys were saying earlier, we have to see ourselves. If you don't see yourself in something, you don't really see it as a tangible, attainable goal. And case in point, I'll share a story with you. I have some really great friends in the industry and outside of the industry. And I lean on them so much in so many ways. And I share my greatest and most vulnerable moments with them. And case in point, one of my good friends, she's doing something amazing with an organization called FIAPSI. And she's leading the way and changing things for people within that organization. I'm so proud of her. But probably about 4 or 5 months ago, I'd shared with her that I'd gotten a call from NAR to do a story. And pretty much I didn't want to do it. And I told her, we refer to each other. She calls me Lady T and I call her Lady E. It's a show of respect and it's super cute. But what she said to me, she's like, listen, we talk all the time. I know you, you know me. She said, you have a responsibility, whether you feel like you do or not, to lead and showcase for other women. They have to see you. You can't hide from where you are, who you are, or what you are. People need to see that and they need to hear you. They need to benefit from all of the journeys that you have experienced. You have many years of a lot of heartaches and pain, but a lot of successes and rewards. How is it for you to bottle that up, give them the story, let them write it, and share that with the women all across the nation? And so for me, I was like, I didn't think of it like that. So I think I pondered on it for about a month or so and came back to it. And I said, you know what, we will do it. And I thought it would be like a paragraph. And then when we got the story about a month ago, it was 3 pages. And it's in this month's Realtor magazine that hits you guys' mailboxes this week. But it was so powerful in that moment because I will share with you guys, a lot of people, when we were naming my company, and the article is titled The Power of Her Name. And I want to give you this without me going into tears, but I want to give you this for a lot of reasons. I chose the name not because it was my name, but because of what it represented. It represented 2 things that is hard to come by in this industry. If you look at the top companies in the nation, they are mostly male-owned and dominated. You'll have women in positions of president or vice president, but they're not the owners. You have a few of them, but not many of them. And almost none of them, major brands, are people of color, and surely not women of color. And what I said was, because I know a lot of people probably would have been scared and say, hey, put a general name on it. That way it's more universal and it's more attractive to all different races of people and all different clouds of people. And I said, we went back and forth on it probably about 5 times. And at the end of the day, I went with what I felt comfortable with. And I said, no, What we're going to go with, the person that most inspires me in real estate is Abby Holiday. It has always been Abby Holiday because she was breaking the glass ceiling when women should not, or were told they should not be selling real estate. This woman was out there selling everything. And she was even on planes, taking planes to show rural property in Texas. Think about that during her time. And so I said to myself, when I look at real estate and the first lady of real estate, she's the first thing that comes to my mind, and nothing else comes to my mind. And for my company, this is the way it's going to be, because here's the deal. I want to create, I feel like my experiences are so unique that most people don't get an opportunity to have this opportunity that I have right now. And for that reason, we're not going to put a general name on it. We're going to put my name on it, not because it's my name, but because it's the name of a woman. It's the name of a young woman, and it's the name of a person of color. And at the end of this journey, I want to be able to show people you can be all of those different things, and you can end up being one of the largest, most successful companies in the United States or even in the world. And it's okay if it doesn't look like it's always looked. It doesn't have to look that way to be successful. And so that's my goal, and that's me passing the torch, shattering glass ceilings for other women, for people who typically don't meet the regular mold. And you can be any race. You can come from a different background. You can come from a working class family, and people automatically count you out. You don't have to be counted out. We create our own destinies. So one of our operations managers shared this with me because she knows my journey, and she knows my struggles. She knows the highs, she knows the lows, and she knows what that encompasses, being the first one of something, and what comes with that. But she gave me this earlier this week, and so I want to leave you girls with this because I think it's crucial. It's from Helen Reddy, and it says, "I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore. And I know too much to go back and pretend, because I've heard it all before. And I've been down that road. I've been down there on the floor. No one's ever going to keep me down again. Oh yes, I am wise, but it's wisdom born of pain. Yes, I've paid the price, but look at how much I've gained. If I have to, I can do anything. I am strong. I am invincible. I am woman."
Wow. I love it. I love it. That was powerful, Tiffany. And I mean, what can I say after that, right? But I do actually, I want to take a page from your book and say everyone's name here, Vanessa Montañez, Nancy Obando, Nina Fabri, Laura Dietz, Angie Weeks, Tiffany Curry, Desiree Patno. I definitely know that I am going to hear you roar. So I love that. I love that as well. Desiree, you want to add?
Sure, it's going to be a tough call, but I'll definitely go with it. So to close this out, because we're over time, so thank you very much, Nancy, for doing an incredible job, and everyone's story. I love everyone brought a different aspect and the integration of it, and that's the beauty of this. So talk about affairs in order. Nina, you brought up the story of what you're doing right now, not only from a personal level, but from a professional level. What are we going to do if something happens, whether you get a car accident, COVID, whatever, wipe out half families or pieces. We have to get our affairs in order, personally, professionally. So that being said, the dynamic of change has to come from within, and as we can help one, they can help spread the word and continue that migration. So aging population is the target. Obviously we think about it, Alzheimer's and different things coming down the line, but now we're seeing that it can affect you at all different ages, different health issues. So affairs need to be in order. It's never too late to start, but it's always better to start very young. So that being said there, the idea of suicide rate at 18 to 24 is the highest it's ever been. It's the fastest growing segment. So that's the most vulnerable. So you're talking about your teenager, you're talking about your going through college, that impact of change. So making sure that we are really looking at whether you're privileged or not, whether you have access to things or not. The idea is that don't judge by what the cover is. Go and see. The number one thing that's happening right now for me is everyone calling and opening up their hearts of their struggles. And that is the huge part of having the ability to showcase your ask, a need, and wants to keep you going, right? To keep on that train. So case in point for me, to come out and be exposed that, thank you, Vanessa, to come out and expose that the financial issues that are going on in my personal life, because the fact is that I was a victim of financial fraud in a massive way. Finding out what the banking industry does and does not secure and allow and fortitude, no one knew. And so that being said, I kept it inside for a year or two. Like, I can't tell anyone. I sit and do this and I advise, and now it is the most powerful thing to talk about that. And then the last thing I'd like to do is the power of name that Tiffany, you talked about. My brokerage, Desiree Patno Enterprises. I hear you, I feel you. And we incorporated it 25 years ago. And it was so funny when I was doing massive REOs, 750 a year during the heyday, we're going to call it, as the liaison between the financial institutions, the GSEs, all different kinds of entities of capital to help the process, mental, physical, and financial process of next exit and the vendors at large. But one of the things that was so powerful is like, oh, Desiree Patno does not exist. It's just the name of a company. And when I heard that, I'm like, huh? And it went on for months, not years. And I thought, wait a second, you don't think I'm a real person? And the first time I had to get up and go, what do I need to do that I'm Desiree Patno? No, she doesn't exist. You're just copying that name. Well, I'm the only one in the world named Desiree Patno until a woman named Desiree married a gentleman by the name of Patno. It's a made up name. It came from Quebec, France, in P-A-T-T-E-N-A-U-D-E. Talk about funny, right? And so how they get, long story. But the core is in real estate, 4 kids like I do and 20 years younger than me. But the reality was the power of name, Tiffany, you are so on point on that. Having my name and having to go, well, what do you do? I do everything under that brokerage, but it's not just the impact of being a realtor, owning your own company, being sustainable, also being a niche. You got, every one of us have a niche that we love. You put that all together in the ecosystem, we create the power to not just be within ourselves, personally, professionally, but also in the industry of quality of life. And with that, I'd like to end and turn it back to you, Nancy, to close it out. Our quality of life today has to revolve around how well we can help our future generations, our ability to take care of our aging population, and our ability to smell the roses and breathe, because we have to balance that out. And by passing the torch of knowledge, passing the torch of feelings, of humanity and graciousness, of saying thank you and smiling, is all the core of what we need to bring together. So I want to thank everyone for being a certified delegate spokeswoman with NAWRB. I want to thank all of you for your expertise and your journeys and opening up your heart, because that is the most important thing, is keeping humanity in check. So turn it back to you, and thank you very much, Nancy.
Thank you, Desiree, for that. I definitely want to wrap it up and end it with a challenge. Hashtag choose to challenge, hashtag NAWRB. And my challenge is I'm going to create a post, and I challenge you to do your own post as well, and how we can ensure that we are empowering other women. My challenge that I'm going to do for myself as well is amplification. Amplification is key to making sure that the person, especially if it's a woman in a meeting or an idea that you hear from someone and you repeat it, and we keep on repeating each other's ideas and giving credit where it's due, helps us empower each other. So, and it also, makes sure that no one else steals that idea, especially if it's a male figure in power. So that is a challenge to you. I'd love to see your post. Please tag me. Please tag NAWRB and NDILC so that we can go ahead and like it, comment, and share. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Have a great one, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everybody, take care.